I've always been a bit of a country girl at heart, and the older I get, the more I crave peace and remoteness. And I've loved the recent take on the old country and western type movie with the likes of Yellowstone and Godless, but now featuring women as the lead character, the women owning the land, wielding the guns, breaking the horses. I'm really a pacifist at heart and wouldn't really run around with a gun. And I'm a big animal lover. But I love this idea of Mandy's photo shoot and wanted to try and imagine being one of those women on the frontier, remote but not fragile, single minded, self reliant, at one with the land and the animals.
I joined the Royal Navy at the age of 18, partly through parental pressure, but mainly just drifting. It did at least keep me well occupied, and I trained as a naval helicopter pilot, and then 10 years later became a real helicopter pilot, flying commercially in the North Sea and the Far East for the next 35 years. However, during my short and ignominious naval career, I was always nurturing a rebel streak, which manifested itself in dreams of becoming a bass guitarist in a rock band, or later a punk rock band. This fantasy was all the more Walter Mitty-esque because I did not own A, a guitar, and B, an ounce of musical talent, except perhaps singing. At last, in the twilight of my years, my ambition is fulfilled.
Hello, it's Karen here. I can't remember if I said it was Karen James or Karen McGavock, but either one works. I chose what I chose for the photo shoot because I felt quite elegant in it. It was posh, and I tend not to dress up like that, even if I am dressing up. So it was kind of fun to put something on that I wouldn't normally wear.
When my parents died, I inherited a big box of photographs, mainly from my father's side of the family, so going back generations of Garvins. And my paternal grandparents were born in 1881, so it was round about the Victorian age. And all of those photos show the family on special occasions dressed in their best clothes. Many of them worked in the shipyards. They weren't terribly well off, so this would have been a big event for them. Anyway, when Mandy had her exhibition, I thought it would be nice to try and recreate that in some way. And some of the clothes that she had on in the rails for people to wear and the hats seemed very suitable. They looked quite funereal, but that was the way that it looked in the photographs from my family. And I think Mandy taking a photograph of the hat, particularly from the back, is very reminiscent of some of those images that we have from the Garvin side of our family going back many years.
When I was younger, I was very shy, and when my children grew up, my husband and I joined the country and western. At the club, they all dressed up, so eventually we started dressing up, and I discovered it was easier to talk to people when I wore another outfit. I could be someone else, and everybody looked at the outfit and not at me. The reason I wore that outfit was because when we retired, I couldn't afford to buy the outfits, so I started making my own. That one is my favourite outfit of all time.
I chose to be a medieval musician as I play the flute, and I've always loved early music. I conducted an early music choir in Stockport before moving to Ayrshire. I always felt the Scottish scenery evokes an ancient feel, and as a musician, I think about the music that would have been played here across the ages. Even in the absence of instruments, the human voice has always been capable of singing. And even without humans, the wind and rain in the trees and mountains made music for millennia before we were here.
I've chosen just for a short while to be Margaret Macdonald. I remember visiting the Lighthouse in Glasgow in 2001 and realising that the Mackintosh exhibition included a number of works by Margaret Macdonald. It seemed that her work wasn't as well known and could perhaps be attributed to Charles Rennie Mackintosh. I wondered whether Mackintosh's distinct style was in fact influenced by his wife. I wondered why his name is more predominantly recognised than his wife. Is it because greater recognition has in the past been given to men, or do women in general not require recognition of their accomplishments? In this photo, I'm assuming the character of Margaret Macdonald. I'm not anyone's wife, and I'm doing my work regardless of being recognised.
Wanting to be a Scottish international rugby player is of immense pride of representing Scotland, the thrill of playing at Murrayfield, the roar of the crowd, and desire to emulate your heroes and that values of grit and passion. It's the dream fueled by the unique atmosphere of the Six Nations, but most of all, the honour of wearing the thistle. It's the most alive you will ever feel is wearing the national jersey and singing Flower of Scotland.
Hello, my name is Andrea. I'm a mum to 3 grown-up children. I moved to West Kilbride with my 3 dogs last June. I have a big garden and decided to start a flower, farmer and market business. I have a passion for plants and flowers, so for my big birthday earlier this year, I asked for a polytunnel. Combined with this glorious micro West Coast mild climate, Harmony Blooms was created. Growing from seed, sustainably fragrant and seasonal flowers and foliage, arrangements, bouquets and buckets of blooms to suit needs, all available for collection or local deliveries. Lots of ideas and creation to come as I grow my business forward. Watch this space.
Maria Callas, opera singer born 1923 in America, died in Paris 1977, hugely famous for her range and performances. She was Greek, the quintessential diva. Her wonderful voice lives on and is often still played on Radio 3. A dramatic life, lover of Aristotle Onassis, who left her to marry Jackie Kennedy. It broke Maria's heart. I often cry when I listen to Maria Callas singing. Amazingly powerful voice.
I've worn this dress that you see in the picture because I worked for a long time in Nigeria, in Yoruba land, and it's a typical woman's dress to wear perhaps in the evening when you are in that country. And I went to Nigeria in the 1960s, so it's a long time ago. And when I went, in those days, you didn't even go by airplane. You went on a boat, on a ship. And it took 2 whole weeks to get from Liverpool to Lagos. So then my job was to teach geography. And I taught geography in London, in Tottenham. But during that time, I joined the Church Mission Society, who needed teachers to go and work in girls' schools in Nigeria. And so my first job in Nigeria was to work in St Monica's Girls' Grammar School in a town called Ondo. And there I taught geography, but also was involved with science and games and running the dispensary. But I stayed there until 1970. And then I moved to a different town and worked in a completely different job in a college called Vining Christian Leadership Centre. And that was an interesting place run by the church to teach men who were going to be catechists or sort of junior helpers within the churches. And they came there with their wife, and many of their wives had never been to school and they couldn't speak English or Yoruba. They spoke their own language from where they came from, and the reason for coming to the college was to teach them to speak English and to read and to write. But we also did classes in housework, needlework, childcare and health, so that they could be better wives for their husbands. That lasted until 1980. And then the college changed and there were no more women. And I went back to teach the men students, mostly English. So that was my job as a teacher. In the Vining College in that town, there was a leprosy settlement. And I had quite a lot of involvement with leprosy patients who were in that settlement, because people would, they had got, they didn't know in the old days that you could be cured of leprosy if you took medicine in good time. And I became the secretary of the Leprosy Welfare Committee for Ondo State, which took me up a lot of time and energy. And our job was to raise funds to help the patients in their poor housing, and telling people that they needed to come out and be treated. And then I came home back to England in 1990. So I spent 25 years of my life in Nigeria. And in a way it was like going back there, because my parents had been there in the 1930s working in teacher training college. And suddenly I received a letter from the Foreign Office in London to ask if I would accept an MBE, and if I would accept it. And I thought, well, what for? I was really surprised, because it seemed to me that MBEs were some sort of honour that you were given to people who'd done something amazing, whereas I hadn't really done anything but just teach as a geography teacher, and as I explained. And so I did accept. Why not? And so this is what I remember about this medal, was going to Buckingham Palace in 1991 in October, and that was a real something to remember. I've never forgotten. Going and learning how to curtsy and when to curtsy before the Queen, how to shake her hand, and to have a hook on my chest to put on the medal, the MBE, and then to carry it away. I think it was the only day that I've ever gone anywhere and worn a hat. I don't often wear hats. And so that's why you will see my MBE medal on the picture on my dress. I've never had another photograph of it, so I thought it would be good to have a photograph. of me in Yoruba dress with the MBE on.